Hello beautiful traders, welcome to this channel. Today we'll be discussing on FVG, also known as fair value gap. There are a lot of sayings about fair value gaps, but today I want to be giving you the basic concept about fair value gaps and how fair value gaps are traded with. So today, starting from my first example, all these examples I listed over here. This is a typical representation of how a fair value gap would look like. First of all, a fair value gap is a three candle formation with both volume and wick balance, meaning it has a volume imbalance and the wick is also imbalanced. What we mean by imbalance is that this volume and this volume are supposed to be matching each other, but so far there is a gap between them. That is an imbalance. Same applies to the wick and this other wick. They are supposed to be matching each other. So whenever they are not matching each other, it is known as an imbalance. So fair value gap or FVG is an imbalance in the volume or the body of the candle and the wick of the candle. So I will go further to show you how fair value gaps are being marked out. So whenever you want to mark your fair value gap, you usually make use of this tool over here. You pick it up and you try to identify the imbalance existing in a three candle formation. For example, if I'm to mark out my fair value gap on this example over here, this is how it will be marked out. It's from here, you draw it out as long as you want, you stop it and take it down to the third candle where the wick has an imbalance, and this is your fair value gap. If you want to draw a fair value gap for my presentation number 2, you pick it from this point and you draw it all the way out as long as you want. You take it down to the third candle where we have the imbalance existing on the end of it. Same thing comes to the third representation I made here. If you notice on my third representation, our first candle in our three candle formation does not have a wick at the down part, but it has a wick at the top. That is what I am telling you, that fair value gap is an imbalance existing in the bodies of the candle or the wick. So over here you still draw your fair value gap from this point where the body started as long as you want down to this third candle wicks. So below over here are our fair value gaps. Our fair value gaps. We know how very vital and important fair value gaps are. These are where price usually reacts. It's that you have price picking it as a strong resistance area or a strong supply zone or support zone. So it's either you are learning how to use your fair value gap to trade, or you are missing out on your trades and entering bad trades, because fair value gaps are very vital institutional reference points when we talk about SMCs. Same thing applies to this point. We have our fair value gap from this point to this point. Now before we go over to the price action, the real chart, where we'll be pointing out several examples, I need to point out something very important for you guys. In fair value gaps, you notice there is a middle line existing in all of these fair value gaps. They are simply called the consequent coefficients. The consequent coefficient. This is where price is likely to take a reversal or to take a trend from. So take note about that. We'll be going over now to the chart to take more examples. So let's look out for fair value gaps. Alright, I have seen one over here. It is a very big one. You can see this. We have an imbalance from here. And down to this point. And you can typically see how price reacted when it cut into the fair value gap. It had a lot of rejection. Even when this price at this point was able to go past the consequent encouragement, you can see this 1, 2, 3 candles rejected at this consequent coefficient, which is the middle part of the fair value gap. You can also see how price also tipped into the fair value gap and reversed immediately. We will look out for more examples on our charts. We are going. We have another example. Your 3 candle formation down to here. You can see price reacted at the consequent encroachment. You can see how price reacted at the consequent encroachment. We'll be setting out to look out for more examples so that you can get it clearly what fair value gaps are. We can see another fair value gap here. This is also a fair value gap, waiting for price to fill up the imbalance. You can see we have another fair value gap, and this one tends to be now. One thing you should note is that whenever there is a fair value gap on price action, price always comes back to fill the fair value gap, because that is a very massive imbalance in the markets, just like we can see over here. There was an imbalance of fair value gap. Price went its way and still made its way back into the fair value gap to fill up this imbalance. After filling up this imbalance, it came down and made it a support zone and went up again before coming down finally and going its way. We'll be looking out for more examples pointing out fair value gaps and how they were filled. So over here we have another example of fair value gap. You can see this is an example of fair value gap. This is also an example of fair value gap over here. We also have another example of fair value gap over here. Or believe me or you take it, price will always come back to these regions to fill up all of this imbalance created by price action. Price in one way we come back immediately or in the future to fill up these imbalances here. And most traders, SMC traders, are looking out for opportunities using fair value gaps. The wider the fair value gap, the more chances that price will come back to it immediately. We come back to it. So that is all. You can do some back tests